Shalom, shalom. This week's Parsha is Parshat Vayera, and it opens up with Abraham after he had just undergone circumcision when he was 99 years old. God had told him to take himself, his son Yishmael, who was 13, and his whole household, and to circumcise them. And then 3 days later, he's sitting at the entrance of his tent waiting to be able to have guests. And God, in his mercy, sends Abraham guests because he saw it was bringing him great distress not being able to um, have guests, to tend to guests, because that's what brought him joy. And the three angels come, three angels with three different tasks, one of which is there to inform Abraham and Sarah, who hears from the tent, she's listening, that they're going to have a child this time next year when Abraham will be 100 and Sarah will be 90. And we're told Vatischak Sarah, she laughs, Bakirba, she laughs to herself. Now, this was not her alone who laughed. We're told in the last week's parsha when God had given the promise to Abraham that he was going to have a child through Sarah, not just Ishmael, a child through Sarah who's going to inherit the land. Abraham, we're told, he laughed in his heart. Same word, sachak, bilibo. He laughed in his heart. But in this week's parsha, we're told that God says to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? Is anything beyond me? And then we're told that Sarah denies it because she was afraid. And then it says that he said to her, no, you did laugh. Now I want to unpack this story a little bit. A lot of times people say that when they're discussing it, that God chastised Sarah and she did not chastise Abraham because when Abraham laughed, God didn't say anything to him. And then there are opinions that say, well, Abraham was laughing out of happiness and joy, and Sarah just didn't believe that this was going to happen. She had a lack of emunah at that moment. And I don't think this interpretation rings true because I feel that if that was the case, there would be some differentiation in the story. It uses the same exact word. He laughed in his heart, she laughed to herself. And I think there's an interpretation that really I like very much by the Chizkuni that says that God wasn't just chastising Sarah. When he said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? He was really admonishing the behavior of laughter and questioning it and giving Abraham a moment to recognize what he himself had done. And this rings true to me on so many levels, also from the stories that we know before in Bereshit, that God comes to, we're told, he comes to Adam to ask him, what did he do? He doesn't say, you did so and so. And he comes to Cain and says, where is your brother? Giving him time to acknowledge what he did. This is a way that God, when he was speaking to Abraham, of getting Abraham to understand what he did and why he did it through looking at through somebody else's behavior, not just somebody else's behavior, through Sarah, which he understood and knew, and they connected intimately on a level where he would understand why she laughed, because he laughed also, and that's why he can understand it. He can understand it because it was the same emotion that she had, he had. And so if this was an admonishment, it was an admonishment for both of them, but that Abraham was supposed to understand it through somebody else. Sometimes it's so much easier for us to understand something that we do when we see somebody else we love do the same thing. And then it becomes clear. Then it becomes all of a sudden clear to us. And when Sarah denies it and says, because she was afraid, and then he says, no, you laughed. Why does he say, why does it tell us that he said to her, no, you laughed? And I think this is The reason for this is because he when he she laughed to herself, but when he saw her, he understood that emotion that she was experiencing. He saw all of a sudden in that moment her countenance, what how she was. He identified so much because that was just him a few short psukim ago in the Lech Lecha when God had said it to him, and he had like a flashback. He felt that moment of when he went through. He's like, "No, you laughed. I know that face. I had that face. You laughed. I laughed." And then they connected. And I think at that moment when he said that, and they had uh, you can imagine this, a moment of eye contact, of knowing, of understanding what they felt, why they felt it, and why it was going to be different. And that's why at that point they're like, yeah, of course God can do anything. They knew that on a intellectual level, but all of a sudden, Bikir Ba in her heart, Billy Bo in his heart, they were able to internalize what they knew up here. And it was this learning process that they got from one another. And that's really what an Ezer Kenegdo is supposed to be. It's really what a partner in life, a spouse is supposed to be, where you go through things together. And then if you can resolve it together and both come to a greater understanding, you can give birth to the most wonderful things. Yes, physically a son, but I'm even just talking about um, anything, any future growth. Um, and I really think that that's a deeper analysis and how I understand this story. And with that, I wish you much laughter and understanding and connection in your lives and a wonderful Shabbat Shalom.